The Planning Commission.
All right.
Am I coming through now?
Oh, hello.
Testing, testing, 1, 2.
Check your mic too. I can't see this.
Almost. In fact, somebody's messed with the clock up there, and it's almost right.
$7 o'clock, Mr. Mayor.
I will call the May 15th meeting to order, and I will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance and the invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Father, we thank you, Lord, for this opportunity to come together tonight and conduct the business of the town. Help us, Lord, in our decision-making and do what is right, Lord, for the people of the town and all that we do and all that we say and all that we think. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Next thing is the reading of the minutes from April 17th. Is there a motion for approval of the minutes?
Make a motion.
And is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? And we got that part corrected on the part that came into question last time. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the April 17th minutes being approved as written, do so with show of hand. Next is the May 1st meeting minutes. Is there a motion for approval of those as written?
I make a motion.
And a second.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of those being approved as written, do so with show of hand. Next is the administrative briefing. Mr. Brown, anything you want to add?
I wanted to remind you, Mr. Mayor, that the executive session tonight is contractual.
Okay. And so we need to amend the agenda when we get to that point. And also, I wanted to ask you, you had in the administrative briefing a discussion about the stormwater. Do you want that to be on the agenda? Because in the administrative briefing, I think on the last thing you got on there is discussion. You didn't have these two discussions, and then you had stormwater. So I didn't know if that was a...
Well, I was just hoping we were going to talk about it during the budget workshop.
So we did, so is that...
Feedback was for possibly putting it on a future agenda.
Oh, okay. So you don't need to have a discussion here on the agenda?
No, sir, not unless you all want to. I mean, I'll
Okay.
the next agenda.
Okay. And so we just need to amend it when we get there to add the executive session. Any questions of Mr. Brown on the administrative briefing? Seeing none. Next is the code enforcement update.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. I'd like to start out first off. This week is Law Enforcement Appreciation Week, where we recognize law enforcement for the hard work that they do every day, putting on a badge, going out here, dealing with situations that they may not go home for. This year alone, 2017, 135 officers lost their lives in the line of duty. 4 were in South Carolina, 1 was a K-9. So I'd like to thank those that came out to the Law Enforcement Lexington County Memorial last week when Irmo hosted that. It was very special, a very big privilege for us to be part of that. And also thank you, Mayor, for the proclamation today to allow our flags to fly at half-staff in the town of Irmo for Police Officer Memorial Day. Code enforcement report for April 2018. Breakdown for April 2018 of our code enforcement officers, the unsightly violations. We had 68, 62 were for high grass. Conditions for collection were 32, vehicle violations 19, business checks 20, signs removed 68, animal complaints 1, zoning violations 4, miscellaneous complaints we had 20. These are related to the various variety of investigations that may or may not have been a violation. April 2018 continuation. Front yard parking 8, contacted for education, illicit discharge 0. The new sewer ordinance 1807, 5 by Director Klein. 1 rental standard, and when there was 1 ticket issued for cruelty to animals.
Good.
Progress for the front yard parking, 1726 education phase. Total of potential violators identified by the Irmo Police Department is 520. Of those, 102 still need to be contacted or have failed to respond to our request. When asked about that, the 102 have been posted. We just have not made either face-to-face contact, or when asked for them to call us, they have not contacted us or called us. 418, we have had face-to-face contact and or phone contact with an officer, or 3 or more times failed attempts for personal contacts. That's the April update for code enforcement.
Can you go back to that screen? The 418 that you had face-to-face with, you say 3 or more failed attempted personal contacts?
Yes, we attempt 3 times to make personal contact. You get 3 strikes and that's it. We're not going to keep going by there numerous times over and over. If we leave a note for them to call us and they don't want to call us and they don't want to answer the door for us, three attempts, we're done.
So the 418 houses are potential violations of the ordinance out there.
520 have been identified.
Okay. Out of that 520, 418 that you've identified, you've tried to make contact with, nobody's responded. They
Yes,
are in.
sir. Out of 418, we have had either face-to-face contacts, we have either had a phone contact, or 3 or more failed attempts to personal contact.
Okay, so how many have we, out of that 418, have we had that failed, we haven't contacted anyone?
I currently do not have that number. I can get it for you.
No problem. But out of that 418, can you tell me how many people actually are starting to comply with this ordinance by doing the modifications they need to their driveways?
Personally, I cannot, but I can get that information for you as well.
Okay, so 2 things I'd like to know next time.
Yes, sir.
How many people are actually, out of the 400 or 520 people that you've identified, how many are actually starting to comply with the ordinance, get up to date with the ordinance? And then also, how many people that you couldn't contact that failed, 3 or more attempted, contacts failed? How many of those people out of the 520 fall in that category?
I can even do you one better. I'll just email you that information. I'll get Sergeant Dale to
That's
email
fine.
you that this week.
No problem. I accept emails.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see, what's next is amendment to the agenda, and so, in order to amend the agenda, the first thing is, will the item require a vote of council to be taken at the meeting? The answer is no. Then follow the public bodies adopt the rules of procedure for aiding. So all we got to do is vote on the amendment to the agenda, which is to add an executive session for a.
It's a contractual issue, and they're under a tight window on when they need an answer.
Time
Okay.
constraint, yeah.
So
Contractual issue on what?
It's regarding a property owned by the town of Irmo.
So it'd be a contractual matter on a real estate something or whatever.
But somebody wants to buy a property or something? Okay.
So I'll make a motion to amend the agenda to add an executive session for a contractual matter. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? Any questions? All in favor then of amending the agenda to add the executive session, do so with show of hands. Any other amendments to the agenda? Seeing none, next is consideration of communications, and we have a proclamation here to do, and we can step down and the ladies here from the Alpha sorority?
Yes.
Okay. If y'all want to come up here and we'll present this to you, and I guess we can step down here and present it to them. And I think it was James said, I love it. Yeah, okay. I think that's who I was.
Thank you.
Yep, yeah.
What's your chapter again? This is a what?
Come on.
It's present.
And,
Okay, she's coming right here, waiting with the president.
oh, and you might want to share a little bit about June isn't this something for June or?
What you mean at the,
Well, I was thinking that y'all were having like
oh, we did it last weekend.
yeah, but that was for the, I don't call it the,
Oh, that was Midland's Gill.
yeah.
Friday.
Well, no, I was thinking June was some kind of special month. I may be getting that
That
mixed
was
up with
May,
something.
that was last
Okay,
week. We did
May.
our-
Oh,
right,
okay.
That was last week.
All right. And then I can read this thing too. Oh. Y'all are all. And what this says, proclamation for Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority, Inc., Upsilon, am I saying that correct? Upsilon Omega Omega Chapter, recognizing the Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority, Upsilon Omega Omega Chapter for their community service. Whereas the Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority, Upsilon Omega Omega Chapter, I'm doing pretty good, was chartered on May 9th, 1998 in Irmo, South Carolina. The foresight of the Upsilon Omega Omega was visualized by the following three insightful charter members: Militia Sherman, Audria Pendergrass, and Emily McCants. These three women initiated the group's Emerald of Excellence that worked diligently in the community until the reality of the Upsilon Omega Omega was established. In addition to the Upsilon Omega Omega chapter in 2013, the Ivy Heritage Foundation of Irmo was established to assist in supporting the target goals and objectives of Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority. And whereas the Upsilon Omega Omega chapter provided their service to the Cinderella Project, Still Standing Survivors, Women to Work Economic Empowerment Seminars, voter education drives, and the Ascend Mentoring Program, and whereas through their many fundraisers, Upsilon Omega Omega chapter has provided meals, education, and support to events including the Martin Luther King Jr. Impact Day, Pink Goes Red for heart health, mental health awareness, the Longest Day walks, and ending childhood hunger initiatives. Now, therefore, the mayor and council of the town of Irmo is meeting duly assembled hereby declare that the Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority incorporated Upsilon Omega Omega chapter are to be recognized and commended for their valuable contribution to the local charities in and around Irmo, South Carolina. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies.
How you want some money?
Congratulations.
Yeah. Well, I tried to tell them that I did the
You are.
putt-putt
Your name
thing.
again? Deanna. Thank you, Deanna. Congratulations. Thank you.
That on Midland's Give Day, the mayor came, we called him and asked him, they had the Mayor's Challenge, Nephron Pharmaceuticals sponsored the Mayor's Challenge. I think they were giving away $25,000. And
He won 25,000?
No, he didn't win. We wish, right?
I would have never made it with that kind of pressure.
But he did come and put for the Ivy Heritage Foundation, and he won us $250. He did a hole-in-one, so he did really good. Some of the other mayors, they had to help them push the ball in there. And he practiced the weekend before, and he won us $250. And so we thank you for that. So that money
was
will
fun.
be going back into the community.
It was fun. It was fun. It was fun. Thank y'all.
Fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Oh. Now, are we doing this one as well?
I gave you the copy if you'd like to read it, but we already had the presentation yesterday.
Oh, okay. So you want me to just read it?
Yes.
This is another proclamation we had. This was for the Peace Officers Day. We did it yesterday. Was it yesterday morning? Yeah, that was the 15th. No, 14th. We did it for the beginning of the week. So the flags could be lowered today. And this is what it says. Proclamation Peace Officers Memorial Day, May 15th, 2018. Whereas the Congress and President of the United States have designated May 15th as Peace Officers Memorial Day, and whereas the members of the Irmo Police Department play an essential role in safeguarding the rights and freedoms of the citizens of our community, and whereas it is important that all citizens know and understand the duties, responsibilities, hazards, and sacrifices of the law enforcement officers, and that law enforcement officers recognize their duty to serve the people of this community by protecting them against violence and disorder. Whereas the law enforcement officers of the Irmo Police Department unceasingly provide a vital public service, now therefore be it resolved, the mayor of the town of Irmo, I direct that all flags on town buildings be flown at half-staff on May 15, 2018, in recognition of Peace Officers Memorial Day, and in memory of those law enforcement officers who, through their courageous deeds, have made the ultimate sacrifice in service to the community or have become disabled in their performance of duty, and to honor those law enforcement officers presently serving the community. And we did that yesterday morning over at the
Good.
police department so they could lower the flags today in memory. And next is, we have Mr. Jerry Balloon with the Explore Lexington County thing. He had called the other day to talk about that, and I felt like it might be good for him to come and answer any of our questions we have and explain how many of these things go out and where they go and those kind of stuff. So, there you go.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate you giving me some time this evening to talk with you and to answer any questions. Back when I was a young reporter covering news in the town of Irmo and the town council, the council met in a building not quite as spacious or as beautiful as this one. The room was about a quarter of the size, but we all managed to get in there, and I enjoyed my time in Irmo. And I've come this evening to ask for your support in a project we started last year to help our county, particularly in the areas of economic development and attraction of business for municipalities, economic development throughout the county. We published the first copy of Explore Lexington County. We published 15,000 copies, and we thought those would last us a year. Unfortunately, that's not true. We're down to our last few hundred, but that means that there are almost 15,000 copies of these out in reception areas and waiting rooms and all over the Lexington Medical Center hospital system. They're in chambers of commerce. The chambers use them to mail to people who are interested in relocating or doing business. in our communities. We also have an electronic version, which I sent to the council members to see, that the chambers also use to keep down their mailing costs. If someone, for instance, in the Northeast or the Midwest contacts them about relocating a business or a family here, they can send them the electronic version and at relatively no cost. We're getting ready to publish the next one, the 2018-2019 edition, and because of the demand, we're increasing the distribution to 20,000 copies this year. We estimate that will be seen by probably upwards of 50,000 people. It's an opportunity for the town to advertise what you have to offer here. I thought you smartly took the inside cover last year, and I would like to answer any of your questions and hope perhaps that you would consider doing it again this year.
Any questions?
The digital, by email, you're
Yes,
doing
ma'am.
a lot of it. About how many people do you send it to?
You know, I don't know. The chambers do that. Also, a number of the towns do it too. We make it available
Okay.
to you, to Mr. Brown and his staff. It's
So-
really been, for us, it's been a great partnership, and I hope it has been for you too.
Okay.
Are you on Facebook?
We are.
And
We're on Instagram. We're on just about every social media you can think of.
and the magazine is pushed out through Facebook?
I'm sorry?
Your magazine is pushed out through Facebook?
We do. We also push it out through our own website.
And your website is Lexington, what is it?
LexingtonChronicle.com. We think it's an excellent opportunity to put information about the town into the hands of a lot of people. They're going to come to the Okra Strut. They're going to come. In fact, if you will notice on page
23.
Yep, we had a big spread on the Okra Strut. We want to help all of our towns and our municipal officials and our school districts attract people to come and be part of us.
And so we got this front cover that now because we got the front cover, is that why we got the two others, or?
No, we were glad to do that. We're going to do that whether you advertise with us or not, but we hope you recognize also that we have a considerable printing and distribution cost, and you're helping us cover that.
Because it looks like throughout the rest of it, you let every municipality also tell what's great about their community.
Right.
But we have two big pages in there as well.
We also distribute this in the Lake Murray Fish Wrapper, which we publish, and we distribute it also in the Lexington County Chronicle. So it gets into a lot of homes. And we also have them available in chambers and town halls and other places of public accommodation, hotels, motels, restaurants. So you're getting a lot of recognition for the town.
Right. All right. Any other?
So there's 50,000 potential.
We estimate 50,000 readers, right.
Okay. Is those 50,000 readers in Midland, South Carolina?
They are.
Okay.
We do not mail it outside this area. Now, the chambers may. You know, someone who is interested in doing business here or moving their family here, they're going to receive either a print copy or an electronic copy, depending on which they prefer. A lot of people like the electronic copy. It's the wave of the future, I guess.
Any other questions? Thank you, Dan.
Thank you very much.
All
I
right.
appreciate your time.
All right, thank you. And let's see, next is presentation by citizens for agenda items only. This is where citizens would like to address council on any issue that's on the agenda may do so at this time. All we ask is you give us your name and address for the record. And also just a reminder, this is not a time for us to answer questions or debate. This is just a time for y'all to tell us what you want us to know or hear or what your concerns are. Anyone who'd like to address council? Oh, okay.
Good evening, Matthew Hall, 106 St. Albans Court, 1809 ordinance number. I'm against this amendment, basically because you would still be regulating firearms and the state says you're not allowed to.
I'm sorry, can you talk into that mic a little better? I can't hear you.
The state of South Carolina says municipalities cannot regulate firearms, so this amendment's not needed. The word pistol needs to be taken out of the ordinance. Ordinance 1810. The measurement for the satellite dishes needs to be amended to 1 meter per FCC rules for over-the-air reception devices. 1811. Trailers are not required to be licensed, so I don't understand why the ordinance references that. From state law 56.3.130, boat trailers under 2,500 pounds, farm or other utility trailers privately owned and not for hire do not need to be licensed or registered. So I would take that out of the current ordinance. That's not on the paper, but actually in the books. And also, I'm not sure why you're removing, you can have a building in your completely enclosed on your property. That confuses me also. Ordinance 1812. This is actually almost verbatim from what is actually in the code currently, so I don't understand why it was presented to begin with. There were 3 words added, and the first sentence of the current code was split into 2 sentences for this one. So I think it needs to be done away with. There's no point in changing the paragraph to make it the exact same. There is something that I would add to it, where it says paved driveway or a paved area. Amend it to approved parking pad as defined by Irmo zoning 6.4B, which is the current ordinance that just passed for the parking pads. Ordinance 1813. It just seems odd that all this occurred after a personnel issue. So it just has me wondering what was actually said that was so salacious in the personnel meeting for the matter. That's me personally. Also, as far as the budget goes and items G, H, and I, I'm not against pay raises if we can afford them, but from the way the budget looks currently, it references appropriations from reserves. To me, that sounds like we're pulling money from the reserves in order to make the budget. That is not a smart thing to do. If we can't make the budget, what are we going to do when those reserves go down to 0? From previous meetings, my understanding, I could be wrong, There is a required $1.5 million reserve, and we are already short of that. So now we're going to pull an additional $200,000 from that. So we'll be at 1.1, which is 400,000, short of the, what I understand, requirement of 1.5. With all that into consideration, it's not the right time to be giving raises to town employees, unfortunately. Thank you.
Matt, excuse me, one question.
No, we're not.
But I didn't hear him.
Oh, okay. If you didn't hear something, that's fine.
1810, what'd you say about the FCC?
The FCC has a rule that it has to be 1 meter. It's not a lot of difference, but it is difference in federal guidelines versus what we're trying to put in here.
Okay.
So it needs to just be congruent with the federal guidelines. Otherwise, if something does happen and they go, well, it's meeting federal guidelines, there can be a liability and court case ensued.
Okay, I understand.
And anyone else?
I'm Elizabeth Keller. Can you hear me? I don't want to get too close.
No, bring it down, please.
Put it down. I'm Elizabeth Keller, 300 Waltham Abbey Road. All right, I got two things. You want the sweet one first? Okay. NAD. Let me talk about NAD just a minute. That is the Neighborhood Appearance District.
Well, that was not on the agenda, so you'd have
that's
to
right.
stick
I
to
gotta
stuff
get that
right
on
now
list. All right.
that's on the
All right.
agenda.
Let's talk about what he was mentioning about the budget, because I like that. I read in the Irmo News a while back about a position for lieutenant that came up. And the Irmo News said something about they couldn't afford to fund it. And somewhere it talked about $200,000. The gentleman back here was talking about much more money than that. Somewhere it talked about $200,000 deficit. I don't know where I got that. I read it. So therefore, they couldn't fill the lieutenant position on the police department. And I read that we were number 15 is the safest municipality in South Carolina. That's pretty nice. And I see here my number, I said out of 200 and something, where I've got it, 246 municipalities in South Carolina, we're number 15. Would be nice to stay that way. So if we can't fill the lieutenant's position, my question is, and you can't answer this, if the people that is on the agenda, about 3 people who are getting or want to get, or we're going to give a 10% raise to, did they ask for the raise? Did they threaten to quit? And I know the lawyer's sitting right here, no offense, but because I'd love a raise too. I was a state employee, Lord have mercy. Say I want to quit if I don't get one. Did they ask for a raise? I don't know those questions, answer to those questions. Y'all do. So provided they didn't ask for one or say I'm going to move on if I don't get one, here we have a position that it said in the Irmo News that we couldn't fill, obviously needed it, didn't just put it in there for no reason. Here we are with a good reputation from our police department. Love the police department. I'm the one with the dog called. Boy, that was a mean dog. I love dogs, but I couldn't even, well, he chased my neighbor. That was kind of fun. But anyway, getting back to that, remember that it's taxpayers' money, my money. I was here when Irmo started out in 84, 83. I remember his coming to the meetings. I don't want anybody to play loose and fast with my money. I don't like it. And I don't like money put up for, or this being political. I don't want it political. That's mean-spirited. It's not right. And here are these raises for you, Renee. You know, you get your 1% and then you get your cost of living, and which is automatic, I guess, every year. You get your cost of living and all that kind of stuff. So that begs the question, if other people are getting 10% and all that, you're going to say, well, I work hard too. Unless it's time for these people to get raises, or they asked for it, or they hadn't had one in a long time. I don't know the particulars. Y'all do. Y'all know the reason for this. So when I saw it on the agenda, and then I read in the Irmo News that here was this position that's probably needed, and then there's no money and there's a big deficit, that's why I'm asking the question. So getting back to, is this political? I don't know. You tell me. So when you have a chance to look it over and think about it, I don't know if you're going to vote on it. I don't know anything about this. All I know is that if there is a $200,000, the gentleman knows more about it than I do, something point million, 1 point million, I don't know all that. I'm just saying that $200,000 deficit, I heard that or I read it. I'd like the police department to get a lieutenant's position, and if everybody could get a lot of money, I know that y'all talked about finding money, like there was a car dealership possibly coming here, and I wrote something else down that I saw that y'all said. You talked about having unpaid fees, some hospitality taxes you talked about. You talked about some franchises. Okay, all these things you talked about getting and raising money for Irmo. I don't know anything about raising money. I taught school. We didn't raise money. We didn't do that. But are you spending it before you get it? You know, that sounds like the federal government, doesn't it? So anyway, I'm opposed to this unless y'all know something I don't know. Anyway, thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none. Next item is unfinished business ordinance 1809. This is the one to amend the weapons. Is there a motion for second reading?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
And Councilman Walker, I'll let you go, and then Councilman Waits.
I'd like to make a motion to amend this to remove the word pistol from this ordinance and start with that.
Remove the word pistol. Is there a second?
What, let me find it. Hold on.
Second line, first word.
Yeah, here where it says current code.
Current code, under current code.
Oh, okay.
So you gonna second it, or?
No.
Any second? All right, motion dies for lack of second.
Okay. The reason why I did that is because getting a lot of feedback from the community. The simplest thing is people are saying is just to remove the word pistol. That would satisfy a lot of the questions that have come up about the legality of this ordinance versus the state ordinance. As we know, the state ordinance is trump local ordinance every day of the week. And this ordinance, the Band-Aid we're going to put on this ordinance will certainly clarify that this has nothing to do with stopping anybody with a concealed weapons permit to having a firearm, a concealed firearm in Irmo. And we're not, and by adding this sentence, hopefully that will make it clear enough for it. But the ultimate responsibility of just removing the word pistol was a straightforward, simplest way to do this. And since we can't do it that way now, that's why this amendment, putting this sentence, this last two sentences in, hopefully that will clarify it enough that we will not get any problems or anybody get pulled over and stopped. But if that's the will of council at this time, that's what we have to do.
I have a question.
Well, let
Okay.
Julius go next since he's
Okay.
second. Are you through?
Yeah.
Well, I'm in favor of as it is for simple reason. The police department chief says it helps them. Our lawyer said it doesn't trump the state law. The state law is very clear. It's not illegal to carry a firearm if you have a personal carry permit. State law has changed over the years. At one time, you could carry a pistol in your car without a permit as long as it was in the glove box and it was locked. Now it doesn't have to be locked anymore. You can have a personal concealed weapons permit and carry it shoulder holster, small of your back, on your ankle. I think the way this is written, it's trying to protect the citizens from any kind of concealed weapon, be it a pistol, be it a knife. Anything can be a weapon. I can get you through the throat with this ballpoint pen and put you out of life's burden. But this is not on the list. I think we're starting to split hairs a little bit, and if our attorney feels that this is adequate, and if the police chief feels that this is what he would like it to stay as, I'm in favor of leaving it as it is, with the added paragraph putting in a concealed firearm with a weapons permit. This never contradicted state law before this was added. It's not going to contradict state law now.
Well, it did contradict state law. That's why we're debating it now.
Adding this did not change it, Mr. Walker. The
No,
state says
this contradicted state law.
Actually, it doesn't.
it doesn't.
But we'll let, if you can finish, and then we'll let Kathy.
Well, according to the Attorney General's office, two of the attorneys and the Attorney General, this is fine for a municipality.
Oh, I'm sorry. If we took the word pistol out, then we don't need any of that above.
Right,
So why, is that what you wanted to do?
right, yes.
So people could carry a pistol and without
Okay.
a permit.
But state law trumps it.
State law trumps
State law
that.
trumps that, and I'm
So
gonna
that's
tell you,
what I'm saying.
I'm sick and tired of this.
Well, we could vote no to the whole thing.
Well, I've never had such feedback, and I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not a police officer.
Correct.
And that's what I rely on is a police officer and a lawyer.
Right.
And I've been told that I was just flat wrong, and this was wrong, and this has been very difficult. So don't call for a vote in a hurry.
Again, the people that we rely on
Yeah.
to uphold our laws, to enforce our laws, and to bring those to court are telling us this is not necessary.
Right.
But that it's okay.
Well, we got to.
Again, I think if it is okay, all you're doing is you're trying to help citizens who don't understand the law. You're trying to make it a little bit clearer for them. But for our police chief, our police, and our attorney, it wasn't needed.
You're saying that the word pistol is not needed, or the whole ordinance is not needed?
Well, are you still?
Yeah, I'm done.
Oh, okay. Well, I haven't gone, so let me.
What was not needed? I don't understand what you said. That's what I'm trying to
You
clarify.
don't have the floor.
It's
Keep
not a matter of having
talking.
the floor.
Yeah,
I'm
it
asking
does.
a councilman.
You're out of
what
order.
is it?
I get to speak. You've
No,
already spoke.
It's
Julie
not a matter of
spoke. Here.
speaking. I'm asking them a question.
You don't get to
simple
ask a question without a
clarification.
floor.
We're a council, and
I'm going to
ask
speak
each
as
other
well.
So I don't know what you meant by what you just said. I don't think anybody does.
So let me say this. This thing, 22103, was codified in 1985, so that means it was passed before then. When the town codified and the state said everybody had to make a book and put everything in a book, it was on the thing. It was passed previous. When the state came along and passed their ordinance supersedes our ordinance, no matter what, anytime they do that. You don't have to go around, you can, but you don't have to go around changing your ordinance because people that need to know, the police officers and the attorney and the judges, that state law supersedes ours. So if we don't do anything, it's fine. We tried to, in my opinion, do something to help clarify for behalf of the people that didn't understand. And this is not satisfying them. So as far as I'm concerned, phooey on the whole thing. We tried to help. It ain't helping. It's still as much confusion. We're going to have to keep on going through this. I'm going to vote no to the whole shebang. Go back to the way it was. If there's 3 votes to leave this in here, fine, I can be outvoted. But, I mean, we tried to clarify it, make it simple. That's not working. Then, you know.
Go back to this.
Just go back to what was on the book. Evidently, the law enforcement, the judges, the attorney, and everybody understands state law supersedes this regardless of what it says. And we tried to clarify it, and that ain't working, so I don't want to keep on discussing it at another meeting as well, on and on and on. We had this thing, 2 ordinances in 2016 to remove the word pistol. That failed because it didn't get a second. Then we came back in August, and it failed again. Here we are in 18. And
Who brought it up?
I think you did. So anyway, that's my 2 cents. Now, if somebody wants to go, you can go again. Any more discussion?
Do you understand what I'm trying to do now, Kathy?
Yes.
So can I make the motion again?
No, wait a minute. Chief, we really don't need this? Do we really not need this? I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I'm just,
I mean, if you take pistol out, it still says, or other weapon usually used to inflict the infliction of personal injury. I mean, that's a multitude of any weapon that would be used to inflict injury, personal injury. I would include pistol in that. So if you take pistol out, we still can use it. We got a gun off a guy today on a traffic stop. Instead of charging state law, we can charge him with this. If he had a pistol in his pocket, carrying it unlawfully because he didn't have a permit. So we could go, he could plead to this, it's a lesser charge. But I mean, you know, you guys can decide what y'all want to do. It's okay. If y'all want to take pistol out, fine. If you want to leave pistol in, fine. We can still use it if you take the word pistol out. If you leave the word pistol in, it's not going to make a difference either because it's not going to affect what you do on a day-to-day basis. If you want my opinion, I think we just need to make a decision and move forward. Leave it in, leave it out. I mean, we still can use it.
well, if you used it today, I would think that it would be useful.
It's always useful to have an ordinance you can go back to. A lot of attorneys will say, we'd rather go a town ordinance because it doesn't go on their record as a state,
Oh,
State
I see.
you know.
Okay.
We can say, we have stop sign ordinances, we have speeding ordinances in town that people will plead to, just like that, instead of going in front of a state charge of speeding stop sign because of the points or whatever.
Right.
This is just another ordinance that we are able to use if we come across a concealed weapon or a pistol in somebody's pocket. But still specific, if you take the word pistol out, it still says or other weapon usually used for the infliction of personal injury. I would think that would be a firearm. We can argue that being a firearm. It's no big deal. But we're not gonna, state law trumps our stuff anyway. We're not gonna charge, if you're walking around with a pistol in your pocket and you have a concealed weapon permit, we're not gonna mess with you. We're pretty smart.
Yeah.
We're not gonna trump, we're not gonna go after, we're not gonna lock people up if it's not if it's the state law allows you to walk around, fine.
Okay.
Well, you're not going to do it, but somebody down the road could do it potentially, right?
No, we're not gonna do that.
Not you. I'm saying somebody potentially down the road because it's on our books.
Not necessarily. If state law says no, and if we hire a chief that don't know that kind of stuff, we should be kicked out of office ourselves.
I think that might happen, but,
Well, it might. I
I'm
hope
just
so.
saying,
A couple of years, maybe
I'm
2014.
saying that the
13.
state law trumps the state law trumps the local town law, but this one specifically says pistol, which is in contradictory to state law. I mean, it's as simple as that. I mean, I don't know why there's a debate about whether it's in conflict or not. I mean, clearly it is. And all I'm saying is delete the word pistol. That's what I was happy to do. But now people are saying you need to delete the whole ordinance, to be honest with you. But I'm just saying take the word pistol out. So you ready to support me on this, Kathy, if I make the motion again?
No, because I like it the way it is.
Okay.
I'm almost either leave it the way it is or throw the whole darn thing out.
All right. Do you want to throw the whole thing out?
Well,
You're gonna throw the baby out with the bathwater, huh?
but if they use it, if they use it as recently as today, then it has some value.
Well, they did.
So, any more discussion? We have on here second reading of this. If it gets 3 votes, then we'll go to third reading. If it doesn't, then it dies and goes back to the current code that's on the books as it is right now. All ready to vote? All in favor then of second reading of 1809, do so with show of hands. All opposed? So that will go to third reading with this amendment here. Next is 1810, second reading of 1810. This has to do with the satellites. Is there a motion for second reading of 1810? And if we don't get a second reading, then it goes to the current, whatever's on the books, and Bob, you would have to enforce that.
And all those satellite dishes have to come out.
Right.
Okay, I make a motion.
And I'll second.
Second. Kathy, Councilman Condon, you can go first, and then Councilman.
I think this is reasonable. I am interested in what about the FCC thing, because I didn't know that.
Well, there's no problem with a meter. It's like 3 foot 3 inches.
Meter's 39.36 inches.
Okay.
39.37, excuse me.
I would have no problem changing to a meter.
Okay. I do think it's needed in view of the old ones and all. Anyway, go ahead, Mark.
I'm in agreement with you, and I would like to amend this.
Okay.
And I think we should amend it so the satellite dishes not exceed 1 meter
Okay.
in diameter.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor then of amending that from 3 foot in diameter to 1 meter in diameter, do so with show of hands. Any other discussion? One of the problems I think we still have is, where did that thing go? Oh. Right now, it says they are permitted in required rear yard and side yards only. Side yard is everything to the left and right of the home. And some of these things are basically in the front. They're not in the front yard, but they're in the front. I don't know how to amend that, but I think we need to amend that. They are permitted in the required rear yard, side yards, and I don't know if you can say side front yard. Does that make sense, or?
Satellite dishes shall be allowed in the side portion of any front yard?
No, okay.
So,
Isn't it
side portion
of any front yard?
of any front yard.
Now, Hardy.
Yeah, because I know a lot of them are in the front, and we'd have to do the same thing, go out there and,
Some of them are on the roof, right?
yeah, and those are,
Aren't they put for the best reception or
Best
whatever?
reception.
Okay.
Southwest.
so I will make a motion to amend, to add where it says, are permitted in rear or in required rear yard and side yards. And I guess we would remove only,
I'll just add it as a final sentence, except satellite dishes shall be allowed in the side portion of any front yard.
and if located in blah, 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 and then period, and then what?
Except, comma, satellite dishes shall be allowed in the side portion of any front yard. That's what you, as a council, think you want.
Or the rear, right? We're
You
gonna,
already do it in the rear.
okay,
Yeah,
so,
we already do it in
okay,
the
we're
rear
just
and the
doing,
side.
okay.
Okay, so that, yeah, okay, so everything else stays the way it is, rear yard, side yards only, but satellites can only go, okay. All right, so I made a motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
The only place they can't be is in the front door,
And the-
okay?
everything in front of the house.
Okay, got it.
And there still may be some of those, but, you know. And I know of one, but it's covered up by a gigantic bush, so can't really see it. But anyway, any discussion on that? Seeing none, all in favor of that amendment, do so with show of hands. All against. So, any other discussion, any other amendments? So what we have now for second reading is satellite dishes not to exceed 1 meter, blah, blah, blah. And then the other sentence, except satellite dishes shall be allowed in side portions of any front yard. Any more discussion on that as amended? Seeing none, all in favor of second reading of 1810 as amended, do so with show of hands. Next is 1811. This is the one to do with the vehicle in the building or in the garage. Is there a second reading or a motion for second reading of 1811?
So move.
And I will second that, or, this is one that, in item C, automotive vehicles or trailers of any kind or type without current license plates shall not be parked on any street. And we also had our other property that, other than in a closed building, which our other ordinance says car cover. So
Yeah,
we're just
this-
trying to take that one off.
This is to make it agree with the
Yeah, so it
zoning.
doesn't conflict with the other.
Okay,
And then I'm gonna say this too, and Eric, you can chime in and tell me if I'm wrong, but when it says trailers of any kind or type without current license plates, I'm guessing that means all the ones that are required to have a license. If they're not required to have a license, then that's different. But if they are, whether it's a bigger boat trailer or a large camper or any of those other things, they're also trailers. They do have to have them. But again, I'm gonna go back to, our police officers probably know which ones have to be licensed and which ones don't. Yeah.
We understand that to be the case.
Yeah. So, all we're trying to do is take that it has to be an enclosed building out, so it doesn't conflict with the other ordinance. Because a lot of people know about the other ordinance, but they didn't know this one here, and I think it was brought up by Sergeant Dale at one of our meetings when we were trying to go over all these parking type ordinances and which ones conflicted with each other. Any more discussion? All in favor then of 1811, do so with show of hands. Next is 1812. This is the one where we took what was on the books, the current code, and changed it to make it flow better, so to speak. Is there a motion for second reading of 1812?
So move.
A second.
Second.
And if you read the old one and try to follow it, it was very difficult. It didn't flow. I don't know if it's just too many sentences with commas or what it was, but it just, so Eric kind of rewrote it using the same sentences and the same wording, just moved it around a little bit so it kind of flowed better. So you'd have commercial construction equipment under one category and then automobiles, trucks, and trailers under the other, just so it's a little bit more easier to understand. Any discussion? All in favor then of 1812, do so with show of hands. All opposed? And the next is 1813. This is one to do with executive sessions. I'll make a motion. Is there a second?
I second.
There is a state law, in fact, it's written there, that talks about recording of executive sessions. It's still very unclear as to citizens and some of the other stuff and yada, yada, yada. And so I felt like, and also I think the Municipal Association had informed Eric that the best way is to have it in our ordinance, so kind of sets it out clear that no matter what the state is trying to say or not say, then ours is a little bit more clear. So that's where this came from. It also still allows that if we have a reason to record it, maybe we're discussing some kind of legal matter, maybe an employee legal matter or something, and we want to record it so that whatever, I don't know, then we have the possibility to do that if you have a 2/3 majority vote. But that's where this came about, and this is where this is at. And let's see, Mark, you second, so.
Yeah, I agree, and the reason why you want a 2/3 majority is it stops the perception of the public that you're doing this in a legal manner. You're doing it out in the open, and you've got 2/3 of the council to agree when you're recording it.
Any other discussion?
We just went through a debate about, or passed an ordinance about the word pistol in one of our laws, and what kept coming up is that state law trumps town law every time. So if this is as according to what the mayor has said, if this is already legal from a state law perspective, then why do we need a town law to reemphasize a state law that's already where it's already illegal? And then to add more gas on the fire, we want to now add a sentence that says that the council can override the state law and allow this illegal act to now be legal in the town for that particular meeting. That's crazy, to be simple. First of all, the law is not, I don't believe this is a legal law in the state of South Carolina. I believe this is a mere interpretation of it. Second of all, council can't override a state law by a 2/3 majority vote of this council. You know, we can't do it. And if you pass this law, you might open us up to litigation saying that you have basically passed a law that violates state law. So I think we need to really consider this or reconsider this whole motion, this whole ordinance.
Anyone else?
When in doubt, ask the ask our attorney. What say you?
Well, as I said at the last meeting,
Talking to the mic.
as I indicated at the last meeting, I did not necessarily 100% agree with the mayor's interpretation that the state law acted as an impediment to make it illegal. So it did not make it illegal to record those sessions. And again, this has been addressed previously by the municipal association, and they suggested that if the council wants to make it crystal clear, that they should adopt an ordinance such as this to make it crystal clear that there is not to be any recording going on in executive session. And I would probably encourage you to do that, if for no other reason than an executive session, at least as it pertains to myself, would be a privileged conversation, which could be waived if you made a recording and that recording was distributed to the public. So that would just be one of the reasons that you might want to do this. Mr. Walker, I do agree with you in some regards as far as I don't believe that the state statute makes it quote, quote, illegal. The statute speaks a lot to what the public can do and what the public cannot do. This is really speaking to what will happen in that room. And so I don't think they are incompatible.
Okay.
Any other discussion?
Yes. Pertaining to us recording what is going on there for historical record keeping. Do you see a problem with that?
With recording what happens in the executive session,
Yes.
I can't come up with a reason why.
The microphone is not on, so everything you're saying cannot be heard by the video.
Just go ahead and speak loud so
I'll speak
everybody
as
can
loud
hear
as
you.
I can. I'm used to talking in a courtroom, and usually everybody can hear me in here, so I don't usually have that problem. But I can't come up with a reason why you would want to off the top of my head. I can't. But I suppose that there could be a situation. I just don't know what it would be. I mean, typically under FOIA, we wouldn't go into executive session unless it was, by definition, sensitive in some nature or form. And I would have my misgivings about making a record that might be FOIA-able, to use lawyer slang, of something that was, by definition, sensitive to begin with. So I don't know why we would want to, but I suppose it hurts nothing to leave open the door to that possibility.
There are some municipalities, counties, that do at some times have minutes taken of their meetings or record them. I'm not sure which one. And I think the only reason of that is sometimes when there is a discussion about termination of an employee, then they may want to make sure that when somebody says whatever they say, then it's there to make sure they don't come back later and say, I don't say that. Again, I don't know that there's ever, and that's why I think too, having a 2/3 that way is, you got to have a pretty strong case for doing it, and we got to discuss it and vote on it in public as to do it, and you know. And the same thing with the iPads. There may be a time where Bob wants to show us something that is on an iPad, you know, some email or some whatever, some communication, and wants to bring it in so he can show us whatever. And I think if we have it to where we can do that, then if we need to have it brought in there. But basically, from my understanding too, from the Municipal Association, if you take a piece of paper and a pencil in, or paper in, those are foilable. That's why you shouldn't take that stuff in there. But there may be a time, I don't know, like Eric says, when maybe something comes up and we need to. And since it's in there, then we would be able to. Not that I can think of one that we really need to. But it may. A lot of things we don't think of, and it does come about at some point.
So it's not that it's illegal, it's just that it may be foiable. Is that right?
Well, the statute doesn't speak of legality or illegality. It speaks of what is permissible and not permissible. What is permissible and what is not permissible. It doesn't speak in terms of legality and illegality.
Okay, so making it crystal clear for me and the other 12,000 people that may be watching this video, it is what the mayor says is being illegal. It's not true. It is permissible.
As far as the state statute, my interpretation
Correct.
is it is not quote, quote, illegal as that term is commonly used.
Right.
To, under the state code, to record the executive session.
Okay.
But it's
not
not permissible,
That's right.
not allowable.
Not
or
allowed,
permissible.
but it's not illegal.
Not illegal. Right.
That's a fine difference.
A fine difference, because I see it different. If it says you can't do it, then that makes it illegal, but that's just me. I don't know. Anyway. So, any more discussion?
Yes. If it is not illegal, but not allowable, and it happens, what's recourse?
It's silent.
The state law, yes, silent.
There is no recourse stated, hence why it's not quote, quote, illegal. If it was illegal, then there would be a recourse.
But it's not allowed.
Right, and again, it's speaking to that statute that's cited, and all of FOIA is speaking to not, this isn't a criminal statute so much as it is a statute that is meant for us to have open discussions. It speaks of the rules of how we carry on an open government and what is allowable and what is here to allow the people and the citizens the safeguards of having an open government. And that particular ordinance talks about it's okay for a citizen to be here, as many of our citizens have been on some of our past meetings, with their own recording devices, especially when those recording devices are not provided by the municipality. And it says what they can and cannot record, and it tells the rules of how they can go about recording it. But one of the places they're not supposed to record it is that room. It's really there for you to exclude the recording from that room. You have a venue for excluding the recording from that room. It does not say a violation of this, a recording in this room will subject a person to a felony or a misdemeanor. So for that reason, it's not illegal as that colloquialism is commonly used.
And one of the issues with it is, too, and it talks of citizens, it's not 100% clear that when they passed it, they meant council members. To me, a council member is a citizen, so there's a gray cloud on that definition, too. Anyway, any more discussion? All in favor, then, of second reading of Ordinance 1813, do so with show of hands. All opposed?
This is second?
Yeah.
Okay.
Next is the approval to place advertisement in the Explore Lexington County Magazine that we just had. And one of the reasons I asked Bob to put this back on, actually, it was deferred. Is this the one that was, yes, this was deferred from last meeting until this meeting. So is there a motion for approval?
I make a motion.
And I will second.
Well, I know at the last meeting, when we deferred it, we were asking if there were any other venues that can be provided that would give us more exposure. And I believe Councilman Walker said that he might be able to do that.
And I'll go and then we'll let the others. One of the things too, you know, we just talked about that hospitality and that accommodations tax and all that kind of stuff. Out of the accommodations that we get, The first 25,000 that comes into the town goes to the town. And then the next 5% of everything above that comes to us. And then the next 30 goes to that other group, and the next 65 goes to that other group. The 5% over the 25,000, I think, Bob, you told me it was like 5,000 or 6?
It's between 5,500 and 6,000
Yeah.
the last couple of years.
Yeah. So that money comes into the town. The 25,000 is quote ours. You know, we can spend it in the general fund, or we can still spend it on tourism-related stuff too. I'm sure the hotel people would appreciate if we spent the whole thing. But my opinion is, you know, we're trying to do things to get more money into the general fund. Take that 25,000, put it in the general fund, and take that 5% money and use it in a way that helps promote our town. The 30% and the 65%, they're required to spend it pretty much in a 50-mile away radius. This money, I don't have a problem with spending it on promoting our town in a more localized area. Since they're already kind of hitting the out of the town area, then we can do something to promote our businesses, our restaurants, and everybody else, you know, to come here and eat and that kind of stuff and shop and do everything else. If you live in, I won't say Batesburg, Leesville, or somewhere else, you may go to Lexington a lot because that's the closest major city. If you live somewhere between here and Chapin or here in Lexington, you know, you have choices. But if we can get more people that are in Chapin to come here and eat because they haven't got the same selection, or people in Lexington to come here because they're tired of their selection, and people in Batesburg, Leesville that might want something more than barbecue, and I don't want to say that, but you know, they got two great barbecue, then maybe we can get them to come here when they look up the thing and go, oh, that community park, and I don't know if y'all know it or not, I keep forgetting to send the thing, but it was #1 park out of X amount of parks in the area. And I'm gonna call it the Columbia Moms thing.
I saw that, yeah.
There's a lady that has a page called Columbia Moms or something, and they picked it out of the top 5. Saluda Shoals was on there, Ballantyne, the one in Chapin, but ours was #1. And I think too, if we kind of promote that a little bit, people are gonna come here and then go play and then hopefully go eat at a restaurant or stop at a service station, get sodas or something, and get gas while they're here too, maybe, I don't know. But that's, you know, any other discussion?
Just one thing. We've been talking about money since 6 o'clock, off and on. How can we afford this?
Well, how much did we do the last year? I think,
It was 2,500 for the front page, but that's why I gave you a list of all the other prices.
right. If we're gonna take hospitality tax and get $500,000 or $600,000 or $700,000, and we're gonna put all that money in our general fund and not spend it on tourism-related stuff, you know, the other side of the question is why we ain't spending the $25,000 plus the 5% on tourism-related stuff. That's what the money is for. They don't require that $25,000 to do that. If I were a hotel person, I'd probably ask, why not? And then if I wouldn't even spend $2,500 out of the $5,000, I'd ask, why not? And I think too, if more people come here and eat and drink, then those restaurants and places are gonna benefit by it. That's my 2 cents on it. I think it does promote. I advertise my business, and if I didn't, I don't think I'd get part of the business that I get. And it's the same thing. We're spending that tourism-related money, not the general fund money. And I think that's a different category. Just like when we get that money, we have to decide how to spend it on tourism-related stuff.
So are you saying this is tourism? Is that what?
Well, the hospitality tax.
I understand that, yeah.
Idea is a little bit different. Do I think anybody's going to come over here from Batesboro, Leesville and spend the night in a hotel and go
No.
eat? No. But I do think they might come to our town park and places like that. People in Pillion and all these other small towns that don't have the parks will come here to play in that park and then possibly eat and do some other stuff, buy some gas while they're here. And that's why I think being local like that helps promote it. And we're also promoting that orchestra, which is drawing people into
That's
the
true.
community and to the hotels maybe too. You don't know, but hopefully. I just think we need to do something. I would be willing to put an ordinance on for the next meeting that we spend the 5% on tourism-related stuff. So there's no question in the future that that money goes towards that. Because that's really what it's raised for. Any other discussion?
You mentioned that we wanted to try to get the most bang for our dollars and stuff when we're spending this tourism money to bring people into our area. And I'm sure looks like a very fine magazine. It looks really nice, well done, laminated and stuff. I mean, this is something you keep on your coffee table at home or in a doctor's office for a while. You don't just keep it there until the next issue comes out next week, as you would in a normal, newspaper. But again, to me, it's about distribution. And when you get into magazines like Southern Living Magazine and, Delta Airlines, Skyline Magazine, that distribution is a lot greater than just the 50,000 that this particular publication is going to print. At the same time, you're right. We do need to spend that money. We need to spend it on stuff that's going to attract folks to come to Irmo. I see here he's got advertising rates that are a lot less than $2,500. I mean, I would suggest we take out an ad. I mean, he's already running stuff in here about Irmo that I believe it didn't cost us anything. There's a nice article about the orchestra in there. And I don't believe that's a quid pro quo. If we don't take out an ad that comes out, that still will be in there. I'd still say we take out a half-page ad, $1,200 it says here, as opposed to $2,500. Take out another ad in the Irmo News Orchestra edition. That's $1,200, whatever that cost is. Take out another ad in the state newspaper and develop more of a spread out frequency of the monies that we're using for this advertisement than to concentrate it in just one magazine, one shot. We're already getting the freebie by having to talk about the orchestra. This is just a little financial boost that we're going to talk about spending. So I'll make a motion that we change it from $2,500 to half-page ad to $1,200.
Is there a second? Motion dies for lack of second. Back to discussion of this. And right now we don't have anything in here other than approval. So at some point we got to decide how much too, because that's not in there.
Well, how can we approve if we don't know what?
Well, that's what somebody needs to make a decision. And he made one for 12 that didn't get a second, so we're back to whatever else is left. 5,000, 3,500, 2,500, all those things.
And we advertised last year in this.
Yeah, last year we did the inside cover for 2,500.
I mean, when I opened this up, I went, oh.
Yeah, you're right.
I did. I think one of the things that many people don't realize is the town is funded on the backs of business. And when we promote our town, we promote business. That's what we do. We're promoting people to come here, people to play, people to stay, people to eat at our businesses. So I'm going to make a motion that we do the 2,500 again for the inside cover.
Second. I will second. And I agree, I think it's a good bang for the buck. I would also say, and kind of in conjunction with Councilman Walker, is we take the other 2,500 and put that on the agenda at our next, you'll be out of town the next one, right? Maybe the one after that, and kind of decide how to use it to promote. Because I think we should use that, whatever it is, 5,500, you can kind of find out for sure. You know, again, I might even put it on there maybe for that meeting that we keep the 25,000 in general fund for offsetting cost of
Yes.
police officers and stuff that, you know, whatever, for tourism-related things. We can come up with something and then take the other 5% and every year allocate it out to some kind of promoting something.
And again, 72% right now, 72% of our budget is based on business, what we get from businesses. So.
And this fee wouldn't come out of next year's budget. I don't want it to be confused because we've been talking about the budget.
Yeah, that's right. It'd come out of this.
Right now.
Yeah, this year's.
Right.
Okay, well, that's better. Okay.
Any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor then of approval to place advertising promoting the town of Irmo and Explorer for the amount of 2,500, do so with show of hands. And opposed? All right, the next is the 3 approvals to increase the salaries. One of the things I think we need to do, and we are going to be discussing personnel. I think we need to have an executive session to go into personnel to discuss the personnel first, and then come out and vote. And I'm going to ask Derek, can I make a motion to go in executive session to discuss these salaries of all 3 people, or I have to do one individually?
I don't see any reason you can't take it as all at one time.
Right, okay. And let's do it this way, just to make sure it's, any item that we have on the agenda, we can go into an executive session for once we're into that debate. So we need an approval to increase the town judge salary first, and then once we get that, then I can make a motion to go in executive session to discuss them all, and then we can come out and vote. So is there an approval to increase the town judge salary?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second?
And let me write this down. Any discussion? And that's where I'll say, before we discuss, let's go in executive, I'll make a motion, we go in executive session to discuss personnel matters having to do with the salaries of these 3. No votes will be taken and no decisions made, just to discuss stuff and then come back out, and then we'll vote on each one. As
Why do we need to go in executive session? I don't understand why we're doing that, because, yeah, but I mean, it's, everybody knows what their salary is. What's the secret?
You're going to be discussing their personnel.
No,
Whether
I'm
they
discussing the
deserve one-
salary.
Whether they deserve one or not is a personnel matter. That is a personnel matter. Same thing, if we were to give Bob a raise or something, we would go in executive session and do a, whatever you want to call that, and then we would move from there. We don't need to be discussing personnel matters in public. So,
Well, you're saying personnel matter, we're talking about salary. Is that what you're saying is the same thing?
in order to discuss salary, you got to discuss their record, their performance, and everything else. So, yes. So I'm making a motion. Is there a second? Any discussion? Seeing none, we will go into an exec. All in favor? Let's vote. Yeah, all in favor? All opposed? Make sure we cut our mics off, take them off, whatever.
I want to excuse myself from this executive session.
Now, what we're going to want to do is
Would you like one of these? Sure. They're a great keeper around the house. They got all kind of information about things to do with your family. Okay, cool. Thanks. You're welcome.
Accuracy, accuracy, accuracy. That's what I was taught in journalism school.
Yeah, but then Percy Cheeky didn't ever change it. You know, John's not gonna write it that way. John never took a journalism class. If he did, he didn't learn anything.
I sure have gotten sensitive about executive session.
Don't go there. Not in front of him. He'll quote you.
Come on, he knows what's going on.
Don't
He
imagine
does.
they're recording it.
Well, honestly, that's not going to be my issue. I'm not going to talk about recording. I'm going to talk about lying about it. I don't think recording was an issue. Sending it out was okay. Whether you send it out or not, it doesn't matter. Then you said you did, or you didn't. You said you didn't. So that's just one, that ain't big deal. So I don't know if you saw, somebody asked me the other day, why I go through all the trouble to write all this stuff down. My answer was really simple. It's to make sure that anybody who decides they're gonna do this, they will have a second thought before they do it again. I would appreciate it if this behavior would stop. Okay? It doesn't, the fact that it happened, it happened. Don't do it again. Because we'll just keep pointing it out.
Well, I had to stay about 3 hours and about up. I had to do my tube feed. Started to bring it with me and do it in the bathroom. And I said, nah, probably.
This isn't important enough to do that.
I'm surprised they're going into executive session and talk about salaries when
They
they've
did
already
last
said
time.
we can't afford it, we can't do it now. So
If you'd been in the previous, did you go to the previous budget meeting?
no, I haven't been.
Okay, in the previous budget meeting, they discussed the fact that the judges' salaries were equal.
Yeah, if they're coming back, I'm gonna
And
get
so
it.
that's
that
really,
might be
that's really what this is about.
I'm out of here. I'll see you.
Take care.
We're all here. Everybody ready? Got your. We are back from executive sessions, and we are back to the approval to increase the town judge's salary. There was a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yes. I would like to defer two of the positions until after we pass the budget. But go ahead and vote on the associate judge.
So let's see. To defer G and I. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
Why do you want to defer those?
Because I want to know what the budget's going to be before I.
Mr. Mayor, I didn't hear a first and a second on H and I.
No,
No, we're just under G right now.
So if she can't defer something, you haven't done a first and second.
Well, you're technically correct, yeah. So there's a motion to defer G.
I second it.
And second. Any discussion? And Kathy, you can go first since you made the motion, and then Julia second.
I would like to know exactly what the budget is and if there is a surplus this year, and a lot of factors that would go into a raise for anybody. And I just think it would be a good idea to defer it for about a month.
Julius,
I agree.
any other discussion?
What's gonna happen in a month? We have a
How much
budget in
money we
place
have.
for next year?
Hmm?
We'll have a budget in place for next year, is that what's gonna happen?
No, next month. I think this is my thinking. I'll have a better idea on how much money we can spend.
But we're not talking about thousands of dollars, I mean, millions of dollars, we're only talking about a couple of thousand.
Well, right now, we don't know what we're talking about. 'Cause
Yeah,
there's
and it's
just an approval
continuing.
to
This is-
increase, but
this
there's
is-
no dollar amount. We need to make an amendment
So
to
we,
add a dollar amount.
do you agree that we should at least increase it? I mean, vote it up or down that we're gonna increase it?
Do what?
Do you agree that we should at least increase it? I mean, we don't know the amount, but we're saying, yes, we're gonna approval to increase the,
Yes, yeah, that's fine.
then that's what we need, that's what we're voting on tonight. We're not voting on an amount.
No, because somebody will make a motion before we finish for what dollar amount? I can make a motion for $1.
Well, we just, right now, we're just approval to increase
Right.
the salaries. And that's all we're saying.
And right now, we got an amendment, a motion to amend it to defer
Defer
this.
it, right.
I'm against deferring. I think we just need to go ahead and vote and resolve some of this stuff. But again, that's me. Any other discussion? All in favor of deferring this item G until which meeting?
So a month from now?
So that'd be the
Second meeting in June.
Second
19th?
meeting in June.
Yeah.
I think June. Yes. All in favor of that motion to defer, do so with show of hands. All opposed? Is there a motion to amend to add a dollar amount? Seeing none, all in favor to approve an increase of an unknown dollar amount, do so with show of hands. I'm sorry? So there's two. And all opposed? And next is an approval to increase the associate judge's salary. And before we make a motion, I would say we can add a dollar amount at this time or whatever, or we can go through the same thing. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
And any dollar amount or just approval?
It says approval on here.
We can amend that because just like we did anyway.
Well, you need to make a motion to amend them, if you want to amend it.
Yeah, or we can make a motion for a dollar amount and just start off that way if we want to. But if not, so is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Well,
But she certainly deserves it. A hard-working lady, and she's
and how much is hers? Is 12?
that 12 plus 5.
And
She's carrying 50 to 60% of the load
Mm-hmm.
based on observation.
More.
and we're paying the other judge 30? 36. So is there a motion to add a dollar amount?
Yes.
How much?
To 30,000?
The motion has been amended.
That's including the 5.
No.
No.
The 5 doesn't come out of you, right?
Okay, well, yeah, I mean, it's
That would be 20,
part of her salary is what we pay to the county. We know we're gonna be
Right.
doing that, so
so 25 plus 5 is what I'm saying.
So you want to do the 25?
you wanna raise it to 25.
Yes, I threw, the 5 isn't thrown in? Well, it is ultimately, okay.
All right, so Kathy made a motion to amend. Is there a second? I will second. I think we do need to talk about that because she's doing twice as much work as she was years ago, and
Well,
hers
she's-
has not been
she's
increased
here.
at all.
She's easy access, and I think that's important for the police and other lawyer, whatever, you know, anybody that needs to get in touch with the court.
So you're more than doubling her salary.
And you just voted the judge's salary down.
No, I
It
didn't.
stays at 30, or 36,
36.
whatever it is. Any more discussion?
I've seen her at work.
All in favor then of the amendment to change that salary to $25,000 plus the $5,000 we have to pay for FICA and benefits and all that kind of stuff. All in favor of that, do so with show of hands. Let's see, so we need to vote on that as amended, or, yes. So back to the approval to increase the associate judge's salary to $25,000 plus 5. All in favor, do so with show of hands. All opposed? Next is the approval to increase the town attorney's salary. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Is there a second? And I'm going to second this just to make a comment, but I'll second that just for discussion. Councilman Walker, you went, or motion, so you can go first.
No motion, no question.
Hmm?
No comment.
Oh, okay. And Eric, I'm going to say this. I'm not going to vote for it, but I think between now and the end of the year, you need to give us a written, since this wasn't requested, a written request so that we can put it into our next year's budget. By the end of the year, if you get it done by December, then we can put it in our next year's budget for discussion. And just let us know what extra you've been doing, so to speak, yada, yada, and that kind of information, so we can have that to make a educated decision. Any discussion? Any more discussion?
He deserves it for putting up with us.
So approval to increase town attorney's salary, do so with show of hands. All opposed? Next is new business, the reading of our 1814 ordinance that has been given to us, broken down, and we also have the thing that we discussed in a work session with all the true numbers and all that dollar amount. Is there a motion for approval of the 1814, the 1819 budget?
So moved.
Any discussion?
No?
Or any second? A second.
I'll second it.
And Councilman Waits, if you'd like to go first, and then Councilman Pouliot next.
Well, we've got 5 positions that we don't have on the police department that are possibly going to be filled real soon, which might be an indication of why we didn't, or I didn't approve of having a lieutenant's position, because that person would be administrative and not a person on the street watching your backs. We've had 4 vacancies for quite some time. We now have a 5th one, and I understand won't be long and they'll all be certified and possibly working for the town of Irmo. So we'll be back at full strength in the patrol division. We have in this budget to replace 4 patrol cars. And we are still waiting to see how much money is going to come from the state. We are not having to take money out of the slush fund, so to speak, yet. but that all depends on what comes in between now and the end of June. And it always seems to fall into place. So I see no reason why we don't soldier on.
I think Bob does an excellent job in developing the budget. Thank you. We've gone over almost line by line to try and understand some of the differences, and things are going up. The economy's good. We've got to hold on to our staff. We have to hold on to our police force. I don't like the fact that we don't have the reserves that we once had. I think I know why we don't have the reserves we once had, because when things were good, we just spent. And this is what happens when things are bad. So now it's unfortunate that some of us who have the least amount of tenure on this council have to figure out how to fix it now. But that's what we're going to do. So that's why I did second this, and I'm going to vote for it.
I've already asked that the franchise fee be increased 1% for the second meeting in June. And in July, I'm going to ask that the hospitality tax be enacted. It has to be voted on and all, but those two things would remedy the situation and help us in the future. And I think we've almost got to do it. I don't like it, but they're the best alternatives available. I hate paying taxes, and one way or the other, it's a tax, but this is the least painful of the ways that we've seen to increase the income stream. And you might be true that we spent too much for whatever. We've spent a lot on developers going bankrupt, subdivisions not being cleared and all, and I would think we almost have spent as much on that as we did on the park. It's been hundreds of thousands of dollars that we certainly weren't expecting and didn't know about most of the time. But I hope we pass those two things, because it'll make the budget not only balanced, but have something in case of an emergency other than our reserve. That's it.
You know, I want to say something that's, I guess, being floated around council about we're broke and how we've overspent in the past, and how some council members with less tenure than the other council members are here to fix stuff. You know, Bob, we have had a surplus for the last, 5 years in a row? A budget surplus?
That's correct.
Okay, so again, this budget that we're talking about having a deficit of $300,000 or $200,000 is based on what we're budgeting for the next year. But again, we have a surplus this year projected of $300,000. So in reality, some of those items that we want to buy in this new budget year, next year, like these police cars, we could buy this year, and that thereby reducing that quote-unquote deficit that we're projecting next year to pretty much nothing, to have a balanced budget. So this myth about we're broken, that you're trying to fix stuff that the new members are trying to fix, is exactly what it is, a myth. We're not broke. We're not running a major deficit in our budget. We can't pay for stuff. It's a matter of, on paper, we're saying that we want to buy a lot of stuff that we're projecting we might have not enough money in the next budget year to do. but we have the money surplus this year to do those things. Now, I commend you, Bob, and your staff for running a very efficient town, making it so that we don't have a town tax or have a need for a millage rate to supplement our budget, and I appreciate that. When we talk about having a franchise or a hospitality tax to the members of our food and beverage community, that's great. It's not a tax that they pay directly, but it is a tax that they pass on to their customers. I think it's more of a fair thing for us to do if we're talking about having a tax increase, is to have it across the board. Just have a business licensing tax increase. Make sure that the people that have furniture or finishing businesses pay a little more, as well as the people that go out to eat at McDonald's pay a little more. Make it even across the board, not just one particular segment of the community. But it is a good budget, and I would support it.
I do want to mention a couple of things. Right now, we have $6,098,294 in revenue, so to speak, coming in, and we have $6,205,000 total expenditures, which is a shortage of 211. I'm not going to go off on a limb and say this is the first time ever, but I think my memory, this is the first time ever we started the year budgeting with a shortage. We've never have done that.
No, you're right.
And one of the reasons we've had a $200,000 to $300,000 surplus is the fact that 4 officers' positions hadn't been filled, so to speak, for years. And when you're not running full staff, it's easy you got to budget that money for them, but when you don't have them, you're going to end up with a surplus. I had a surplus in my business too until the economy came through. Things change. As far as the franchise fees and stuff, I've also asked Bob to go ahead and put that stormwater fee on there and that uniform service fee on there too, so we can debate all of those and vote on them at one time, other than the one hospitality, which is July. But we need to discuss that stuff, and we need to vote instead of discussing. We've discussed, so let's start voting on it and decide, do we want to do that or do not do that? If we want to do a tax increase across the board, to me, that would mean property tax, because that's across the board. And I don't know that anybody wants to do that. I don't know that we want to go up on a business license. I wouldn't support it because a lot of businesses pay a good fee to the town. In fact, that little thing that I did a while back that showed where our revenue was coming from, 70-some% of it is coming from businesses, either from the local option sales tax that they're collecting or the business license that they're paying. And I think if you want to do something fair, then it would be time to say, hey, maybe the citizens ought to pay something to the residents. We don't want to do a property tax, and I don't think we necessarily have to if we do some of these other stuff. But I think we might argue about some of these things. We might argue about whether it's a 1% or 0.5%. At the same time, if we do a 1%, we may end up with more money that we're going to fuss about how to spend it. And we can always do a 0.5% now and a 0.5% later if we need. But that's for that debate that day. The one thing I will say, if we look at that stuff that Bob gave us, that year to date so far, not on this thing, but on our worksheet stuff, the $3,609,636 that came in year to date, we're expecting a check for the franchise fee from the utility companies of about $585,000. We're expecting one from the insurance to the municipal association of $1,300,000, and those are estimates, which brings us to somewhere in the $4.4 million, which is more than our $4.2 million budget that we started with. I'm going to make a suggestion. I'm going to make a motion. It may get a second, it may not. I'm going to make it at the next meeting until it does. But instead of going into this, ending this year with a surplus, that basically goes into our savings. And then starting the year with a deficit, that we go ahead and buy 3 of those police cars now, or all 4. I don't know if we can buy them between now and July, time-wise.
Well, if we order them, then we've actually obligated the funds, so it would come out of this year's budget.
So I would be comfortable making an amendment that we buy 3 right now. And then at the next meeting, if we get those checks in June 19th,
We don't get until the end of June, normally it's the last.
will we know a little bit more from those people how much is coming?
I can check back.
Then we buy the 4th car at that meeting.
But we'll have to get the actual prices for the 3 vehicles. I'll have Courtney, so we can have it on the next agenda, so we know exactly how much you're approving for the vehicles. You have to approve the expenditure, it's gonna be what, $70,000?
For 3, how many will 3 be?
Depending what we buy.
Okay.
And they wanna buy trucks, SUVs, cars, so I mean, whatever the bottom line is for what they want right now, I'll make sure that's what council gets on the next agenda.
So you're saying we really don't need to do it right now, we need to do it at the next meeting?
Next meeting.
Okay. And I know Kathy's not gonna be here, are you comfortable with that?
If y'all have enough sense to vote for it, yeah.
Okay. Okay, well, I won't make that motion right now, then I'll do it at the next meeting to buy either 3 or 4 of the cars out of this year's budget, and that will clear 150 roughly,
155.
something in that range.
But you're right, this would be the first year, since 2003, that we've started off looking for at a deficit. I can't stand it. That's just, we can't do that.
So, being that, since I'm not gonna make the motion, we'll do that at the next meeting, and I know you won't be there, but.
So by doing that, now does it look like it won't be a deficit of $211,000?
Probably somewhere in the 50, but it's still a deficit. But
Well, Mr. Mayor, the big difference on there, as you all can see, is the fact that we are still collecting, let's see, in this case, for sanitation, $1,040,000, and our bill for next year will be $1,090,000. That's your $60,000 or 50.
okay,
I mean, we won't see that until the end of the year because it comes out of a separate account.
right,
But we have to show it on our budget.
okay.
We really won't have a deficit with that.
So it would be a balanced budget then?
Be closer to it with the vehicles purchased now, and like I said, the garbage comes out of a separate account, so yes, it'll be real close.
We still ought to vote on an
Oh, yeah.
additional revenue stream.
Yeah, we still need to handle that so we can, and that's why I
Got
kind
to
of feel
build
like.
up our reserves again. We have to build up our reserves again.
That's right, I agree.
Any more discussion on the fiscal year 18-19 budget of, what is it? $6,205,294.
Wow.
All in favor then of that, do so with show of hands. Next item is presentation by citizens. This is where anyone who wants to discuss anything, regardless of whether it was on the agenda or not, just come to the podium, give us your name and address for the record.
George Glassmar, 100 Denbeck Road. I've got virtually an issue with almost every item on the agenda tonight.
Talk to the mic, please.
I think I'm doing that, sir. Is that better?
Yes, much better.
Okay, good. George Glassmar, 100 Denbeck Road. I believe I have an issue with virtually everything on the agenda, but I don't want to take up everyone's time with that. So, as they tell parents when you have children, pick your battles. So I'm going to pick a few battles with council here tonight. The first thing I want to talk about is the FOIA amendment. As a lawyer, I have litigated or am presently litigating no less than 4 FOIA suits against various governmental agencies. So I'm somewhat familiar with the legislation in that arena. I would agree completely with Mr. Hale's analysis of the current state statute, and it's important to understand that there's large differences between what's illegal and what's allowable and what a citizen is entitled to, and I think his analysis addresses entitlement of citizens to have access to various governmental bodies and information, and I would agree with that analysis. The current state statute for FOIA does not have a criminal penalty, although it did until the state legislature amended that legislation about 2 years ago, and they repealed the criminal provision in there, incidentally. So I think it's important that the current proposal be adopted in furtherance of the goals, as I understand, of the majority of council in that regard. I also want to talk about the money, and I find myself in a unique situation here tonight because I want to criticize both Mr. Walker and the mayor about the same thing, which doesn't happen a lot. Let's talk about spending dollars. First of all, the proposal to buy the police cars early, I don't think you should buy anything before you need it unless there's some monetary gain to be had. That is, if you can get it cheaper now than waiting. So, and largely what both of you are proposing, I think, is what I saw going on, frankly, with the Okra Strut a number of years ago when nobody could get a handle on whether it made money or not because they played a shell game with the money as to when revenue came in and what bills were assigned, and we didn't have all the liabilities, we didn't pay all the bills yet, we don't have all the revenue yet, and we're assigning the early revenue now, but we're deferring the expenses, and they were just playing a shell game with the money. I think that's largely what you two are trying to do now. And so it doesn't matter when you spend $1, it's still $1 spent. So you needn't move expenses around just for political image. Now, more specifically on some of Mr. Walker's suggestions, he talked about what the town has spent. I want to remind everybody that long ago, before the park, whatever the park off Eastview Drive over there, I'm not sure what the correct nomenclature is for that because now we have such a plethora of parks in this town. I'm having a hard time. I almost need a flow chart to keep track of them. As longtime council members will know, I was opposed to that park 2 parks before that. So, but that's the park that Mr. Walker assured the citizens of this town repeatedly in this very chamber during open council meetings, cost would not exceed $1 million. But the last information I have, which is well over a year old now, is the town spent over $2.3 million on that park. So that's $1.3 million that could be in the reserves right now were it not for perhaps Mr. Walker's false assurances that it would not exceed $1 million. So there's $1.3 million that you kissed away right there. And Mr. Walker also referred to, made a reference to restaurants in town that if we increase the hospitality tax or, for example, that they have to collect that really doesn't impact them because they collect that and forward that into governmental bodies. Well, he certainly is the expert on that because if you look at Department of Revenue tax levies that they've issued that I have copies of that I can provide to people that don't seem to believe this, the South Carolina Department of Revenue has made tax levies on him for monies that he collected in his restaurant in downtown Columbia on behalf of the state of South Carolina, yet he failed to remit to the state to the tune of over $18,000. So he's the expert on that. I would refer you to that. So just because the restaurants collect it doesn't mean the government gets it. The final thing I want to talk about tonight is last Thursday morning at about 9 o'clock, I called Town Hall on the phone, and I was surprised that a staff member answered. Now, why should I be surprised that a staff member answers Town Hall telephone at 9 a.m. on a Thursday morning? Well, here's why. Because last Thursday morning, as many of you may not know, was a state holiday. It was Confederate Memorial Day, a day that the state of South Carolina recognizes, and indeed all state government offices were closed that day, or at least the non-essential ones. Yet town offices were open. I cannot understand why it is that the state of South Carolina recognizes that holiday and the town of Irmo, a political subdivision of the state, does not. However, we do recognize other holidays. We recognize Martin Luther King Day, and he did a world of good for this country. I don't dispute that at all, but how is it that we recognize a day to honor the legacy of one man but not hundreds, literally hundreds of thousands of men who died for the Confederacy, and it's a state holiday, and we don't recognize that here in the town of Irmo. It seems to me that if we recognize one, we should recognize the other. I would call on council to put this on the agenda for the next meeting and make a decision. I would support either recognizing both of them or neither. It makes no sense to me that we, again, recognize one for one man, but we don't recognize a holiday that the state of South Carolina recognizes to honor those hundreds of thousands of men who died for the Confederacy. And keep in mind, the Confederacy was literally born not more than 10 miles from here at the First Baptist Church in downtown Columbia, where the first draft of the Articles of Secession were drafted, and South Carolina was the first state to secede from the Union. So again, I think if you're going to, I'm all for either both or neither, but not one and not the other. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Pull the mic down, please. Thank you.
Okay, how about now? Can you hear me? Okay, for the record, I just had to say this. NAD, Don, this is for your benefit too. NAD is called the Neighborhood Appearance District. That is the code enforcer for Lexington County. That's the people who write the ordinances for those. And see, this was on the internet. People have been asking me about it. Robbie Derrick, you probably know him. Probably know Robbie Derrick. He's from the county. They are the ones who have any split neighborhood, this Irmo and Lexington. They are the ones who keep up the neighborhoods that, you know how Coatsworth is 1/3 them, and, they are part of it. We have 1/3 of us are county, and the other 2/3 are Irmo. So where one house starts and another one starts, see, the house next door to me is one is Irmo, and next door is going to be Lexington. So what they do is, do they work in conjunction with you, Don? Do they, when y'all have ordinance situations, do y'all call on them ever? No, so you don't, your men don't look at my house and go 2 doors down and say, y'all just stop. Like if the grass is too high on here and then 2 doors down. Okay. Surprisingly enough, NAD has some pretty strict ordinances. It's amazing. And now that I've found out all about it, they don't, they're getting ready to revise them again. So it used to be that y'all's ordinances were really tough. Now there's a real tough. So Robbie Derrick is the one who's over that, and that's in, I'm surprised. They never did enforce them before. Maybe they will now. But anyway, he is in zoning for Lexington County. Bob, do you know zoning, that part of it? You know Robbie Derrick? Oh, okay, I figured you would. So anyway, that's pretty interesting. Then that's also true. The people over in other neighborhoods have also asked about who do they call when they're not in the town of Irmo. And I have a number that, let's put it on record, that I'm saying that the number that they call is 785-2454 if they want to report Lexington County, if they have a house or something that's in distress, any problems, dogs, and anything, 785-2454. The point of contact is Aaron, and that would be Lexington County ordinances. All right, I got one more.
Elizabeth, is that under NAD?
Even if you're not NAD,
Oh, okay.
Even if you weren't put under NAD, which is the Neighborhood Appearance District.
Okay.
Because all neighborhoods aren't NAD.
Okay.
NAD is it's District 7, I think. And Coatsworth was annexed under NAD 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But all the neighborhoods in Lexington County, this is not Richland, this is Lexington. But some of the neighborhoods are saying if we're not in Irmo, we're Lexington County. But there's a house down the street that just looks awful. Who can we call? Or grass too high, or shingles falling off. And so the point of contact, her name is Erin. She's very nice. It's 785-2454. Okay. I've done so much research on this, I broke my arm patting myself on the back. Anyway, next thing. My brother is a retired ATF agent, and he also teaches gun licensing, and he I know we don't want to go on about this pistol business, but if you wanted him to come and talk about this, in addition to, he'd say, listen to the lawyer. He'd say, go with the lawyer and the police chief. Always listen to the police officer. But if you wanted him to show up, he lives in Santee now that he's retired and moved out of the Strom Thurmond building. That's where the ATF office is. He'd send the special agent in charge if you needed him to. But if you want an ATF agent here to go along with the lawyer and the police chief, I'll be glad to bring his big mouth here in 2 weeks. I mean, just call me and let me know. He knows most of the people here in Lexington County, and he'll be glad to talk about guns and, make a difference. He may or may not, but just let me know. And I love the way y'all voted. Good for you.
Thank you, Ms. Keller.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Lindley Hummel, 112 London Pride Road. First thing, I want to say that I made a comment last meeting about the slides not being available before the meeting. So I want to applaud whoever did that. Thank you very much, because I came here and I was prepared with what's going on and not confused. So thank you. I really appreciate that. The next part is I'd like to thank Barry Walker for that Irmo Park, because that's where we hold the Irmo Orchestra. So therefore, it brings it back. So even though it costs a lot of money, it costs more, it still is a great benefit to Irmo. There was one other. The other part. The discussion here about the. I'm trying to think. What was it? I can't remember what it referred to, but basically it sounds like the town council is speaking out of one side and the other side of the mouth. So it's like in conflict. You can't say that funds or the hospitality funds should be used this way, but on the other hand, they're not going to come and look and see what Irmo's doing with that said money. So it's either you have it's either supposed to be spent some way, or it's not. One or the other. It's not both. So with that, I'll end with CL in 2019.
Anyone else? Being none, next is the discussions, and I think we had been notified by Bob in regards to the lettering, yada, 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 on houses for the fire department and that kind of stuff. We have an ordinance, and I think it says they have to be numbered or lettered or whatever.
The ordinance says that numbers have to be on the curb if there is a curb present. And then if it's not on a curb, they can put it on the mailbox, but it's got to be on both sides or on the house above the door. Those are the only three options.
And he hasn't enforced that because he kind of wants to wait and see what counts. We haven't enforced it in a long time. I asked him to put it on there so we could talk about it. I did talk to the, what's the guy? Brian. Is he the acting, fire marshal, yeah. And he said, yeah, it helps when it's somewhere. The curb is not, in his opinion, the best place because it gets covered up with mulch and dirt and cars are parked in front of it and you can't see it. Plus it gets faded. I don't think the county has anything either. So my suggestion would be either we take it off the books by amending the ordinance, or we amend it to say it has to be
1, 2, or 3.
One of the places. Or we just do nothing, take it off the books. It's a benefit having it on there for the police officers, the mail people, and the fire department, but it would be up to us to enforce it. If the post office ain't going to enforce it, then I don't know. If the fire people can't enforce it, then, But that's up to council, but I think we need to do something by the next meeting. I know Kathy won't be here, but she might not care one way or the other, I don't know. But I think we ought to do something, either amend it to make it more correct or get rid of it altogether.
We ought to amend it and say number on the curb, number on the mailbox both sides, or no number above the front door.
Or,
Well,
right?
Or,
Or.
yes, those are the three options.
because some people ain't got a mailbox, a few, but some people don't do the mail anymore.
Everybody's
They
got a
go-
door, though.
Everybody's got a door, but they ain't necessarily got lights on and you can't see them, so.
Well, that's-
So are you saying that they will deliver mail to a mailbox that has no?
Evidently,
Evidently,
Wow.
they do.
The only thing they won't do is deliver mail to no mailbox if it's on the ground.
yeah.
If it's not on a post, they won't put mail
Or
on.
the people don't have one because they do post office, they won't deliver.
Years ago, a man came by and you paid him $5 and he spray
Sprayed.
painted the number on the curb. I haven't seen anybody like that, though, in years. Because it's on our curb, but it's
Sounds like a-
stated.
Sounds like an opportunity.
It's an opportunity, yes.
How many houses we got like that in town that don't have any numbers on?
Tons.
I can't answer that, Mr. Walker. I mean, there's a lot. Maybe the chief has a better idea, but I've been driving around checking on these parking pads. I go down a lot of streets and there's 2 or 3 houses in a row without any kind of address on it. This is what brought this up.
Anywhere.
No numbers on the house?
No, not on the mailbox, not on the house, not on the ground.
Do we require them, like when
Where-
the subdivision is built? I know the post office requires
Oh, I'm
it to be
talking-
numbered,
I'm talking old and new Friars Gate, not the new subdivision.
but the new ones,
They're all fine, Cornerstone.
they require it, but they could fall off one day or something.
But, I was talking to Courtney, he done left, but I mean, the police officers would be happy as long as there's something that's clearly visible from the street.
Gotta have something on the house. It'd be really nice to have some numbers somewhere, either one of the 4 locations that's listed. Curb, house, mailbox, driveway, entrance to the building, something.
Okay.
Or we could just say the mailbox or the house, because I think putting it on the curb is almost useless.
Yeah.
Somebody's parked in front of it, or there's pine straw and mulch, but I don't know.
So we need an ordinance for this town?
Well, we already got one.
No, I mean, but I'm saying, you said there's a lot of houses that you saw that don't have them, and I don't know, when I drove around in Irmo, I didn't see that many houses that didn't have any identifying numbers. I mean, can you tell me what street we were on?
Would be happy to. I mean, again, they're over in the new Friars Gate area. If you get off of Friars Gate and South Royal Tower, go down Kenton, go down Harlock, Twisted Hill, Maidstone.
Is it because the letters fell off or the numbers fell off? Or?
Very well be. Could very well be.
I'm guessing if we have it in our ordinance when the neighborhood's built, they gotta be there, so they were probably there at one time and then just
Oh, yeah.
they fell off. I've replaced mine a couple of times because they fade and fell off. I've even had my neighbor paint my
So that's just
road thing.
so this is just an opportunity for us to knock on the door and say, hey, your number fell off your house. You want us to put it back on?
We could put it on the agenda and vote for Barry to do that.
I mean,
Well, just think about some night you call for an ambulance and the ambulance driver can't find your house because the numbers are not sequential anywhere in this town.
You're right.
If you live at 124, 126 is not next door, and 122 is not on the other side, and 119 is not across the street.
Yeah, some of them are like every two, and
They
some
skip
of them are
two,
every 4 or
sometimes
5.
they go 5.
Ours are every 6 on my street. Well, all I put this on there so council can make a decision, and then next agenda, somebody can put something on there, whatever they think they want to do. Like I say, we can either get rid of it and just do nothing, but it sounds like from the fire department and the police department, that's not a great idea, so however somebody wants to do it, we can put it on there.
We're not gonna write any tickets, but just come up with something.
Yeah, and if we're not going to write tickets, then we might as well get rid of the ordinance. We've had many people, Elmer included, tell us, if you ain't going to enforce it, throw it out. And so we either need to fix it or get rid of it.
Plus, the census is coming up. And we've got to have, yeah, we need to do something.
Yeah, because everybody that reports, that's money for the state, county.
Mark, you and I could have a little venture on Saturday morning to go paint.
If you want.
So the next discussion is the hospitality.
We're going to
You wanna
discuss that in
We already
June.
discussed it enough? I don't
No,
know. You put it on there, I'm just asking.
No, we're
Yeah.
going to discuss it at the second meeting in June.
July.
No, July is hospitality.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
which one's on here? Oh, okay, no, we're going to discuss franchise in June, hospitality in July. That'll give y'all plenty of time to think about it.
All right. So, next item is executive session. We have an executive session for a contractual matter. Is there a motion to go into an executive session? Any discussion? All in favor of going into executive session, do so with show of hands. All opposed? I didn't see if anybody, okay. A contractual matter. We have, it's nothing, I mean, I don't, if you want to wait, you can, but if you don't, that's,
She's going to have surgery June the 5th. That's why I'm not going to be here for the